We've seen Joker, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Little Women, and Jojo Rabbit.
What a mix. Which one do you want to start with? The elephant in the room?
Should we get the one we don't like out the way?
I would say there's another one that I don't like.
Oh, but I do like it, so we can there'll be some sort of positivity going into that one.
Okay, the one
You
that
pick
we don't
one.
like.
You pick one.
No, we'll go Joker.
Oh, you want to talk about Joker Murray?
So let me get this straight.
Yeah, what do you think? Because I constantly talk about this film with people, and I feel like I want to know more.
Well, I feel like I saw it in the cinema when it came out, and like it was a fascinating film to see because it got me thinking of like, what do I want to get out of a film when I see a film, because I don't always want to be entertained. Obviously, some of the time you do. But there are films out there that are distinctly not entertaining, which are some of my favourite films ever. Like Pink Floyd The Wall, I would say, is like one of the least entertaining films I've ever watched in my life.
But it has like a profound effect on you,
yeah,
and it makes
such
you,
an effect on me.
yeah.
I mean, it is tied into my life in more ways than just as a film, but like as a film, it's not entertaining at all, and yet it's kind of a masterpiece. And I'm watching Joker, and I'm like, this film isn't entertaining me. Like, the bizarre thing was, like, some of the lines, I know we discussed this once we had both seen it, and we were, like, saying which of these are jokes, and are these bits meant to be funny? Like, the bit with the his friend who can't reach the door, and you were saying that's not meant to be a joke, or people aren't meant to laugh at that bit.
I don't think so, no.
But then when I was in there, and it was a packed cinema, everyone was laughing their heads off at it, and I was like, I don't find this funny in the slightest. I mean, it's probably one of the few instances in the film where it comes across as like almost a demented sense of humour that the character would have, the classic Joker character. But it's not, I don't call it funny. It's like, it's kind of pitiful in a way. It's like,
honestly, that's maybe one of the scenes in the film I like more, because I think I try my best not to be affected by that kind of like what other audiences get from it.
No, I feel, sorry. No, you can.
I was just gonna say, I think what I actually, because at first when I watched that scene, I was quite upset by it. I was just like,
yeah,
I was like, this is gross. But I think I'll get to this more later. I went into it with certain expectations, and I think certain contextual knowledge that I'm glad I watched the film putting aside a bit more, mainly about Todd Phillips. But I actually think that scene toes an uncomfortable line between people in this world would possibly find it funny, but it's actually incredibly disturbing and a kind of scenario that a character like the Joker would enjoy. And I think that was one of the more, I don't know, just like complex and layered bits of the film in a film where very little
true,
is.
yeah. I mean, the reason why I bring up the audience is because there is such a divide with this film, I feel, between those who have enjoyed it and those who haven't. It was like a scene where I'm trying to gauge, like, what is everyone else getting out of this film that I'm not? Because I'm not entertained. I what I was thinking was, so films that entertain me, and the ones that don't entertain me, what do I get out of it? Well, I get, like, a broader view of the world. Like, there are plenty of horror films that aren't entertaining, and yet they inform me in a way. I feel like I've not learnt something, because that implies it's almost like educational, that I'm watching horror films for education, but
sure,
it's informed me in a way.
You can empathise with a scenario or a person or a group of people that you have no first-hand experience of.
Whereas with Joker, one of the things that I was trying to gauge, I was like, this film, because I did go in more or less with clear expectations. I know it had been getting a lot of praise and a lot of criticism, but I was kind of like, okay, this is such a storm of different opinions. Let me go in there and just see what I can see. And I'm thinking, is this film particularly insightful? You know, I'm not being entertained. Am I being informed at all? I didn't feel like I was. Like, for all of the praise that is being heaped upon it for social commentary, I thought it was incredibly reductive. I thought the Gotham City that they had built was divided in a completely reductive way. Like, you can sort of say, oh, well, there's the upper class and the lower class, but to have them, everyone in both parties act in a certain way that makes almost each party be irredeemable, kind of turns me off completely, because it's like, I can't really learn anything positive from either of these parties. You know, like, I know everyone in the upper class wouldn't be an arsehole, and everyone in the lower class isn't like an arsehole or a rioter, like an anarchist. Why is this film trying to convince me that the world is shittier than it actually is? Basically, and the funny thing was, I came out and I remember, I think I told you this, where I was like, I really want to just go home and watch Batman 1989. And it's not just because it's my favourite film, but also because that film is such a dark depiction of a world. That Gotham City is equally kind of a hellhole, and yet it has like an optimism to it. Like, it has an entertainment value to it, and it has like an underlying kind of informing quality about society. And it just comes together perfectly, and I feel like I've gained something from watching Batman 1989. Sure. Whereas this one, The Joker, I came out being like, what have I done with that 2 hours? Because this character, I didn't really connect with him. Like, people were saying that it's an accurate kind of depiction of mental illness, and it's like, I don't want to get too much into that because I can't really speak for people who have mental illnesses, but I can't say it was a character that was...
Yeah, I think, like, I want to kind of separate that as much as I can.
Because like, a lot of it, also, you when you're talking about mental illness, then agency comes into it, and it's like, how much agency does this character have? Is he being manipulated? What is he doing? What are his actions? How much of this is a result of his own illness? How much of it is rational mind? All of this stuff about psychology that comes into it. And I just felt that the mental illness side that people were looking into didn't come into it as much as people were saying it was. I thought it was much more a character that had plenty of agency on what he was doing, and he just wasn't doing anything particularly likeable.
Well, in some ways, I think... I don't know how accurate it is to, like, because I mean, the first time, but I think what annoys me about it is I
also want to clarify, like, if someone has a mental illness and they say this film is one that I've related to, I can't, that's great. Like,
yeah, we like literally can't take
because,
that away from anyone.
Yeah, that's not my thing. But like, yeah.
Sorry. I think in many ways though, I would describe a lot of this film as lazy in terms of like the way it's been put together, and I think what annoys me about the representation of mental health is I think it's often in the film used to iron out lazy plot holes.
Yes.
And you can justify anything in the film by being like, it could all be in his head.
Yes.
He could be making it up.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of the time it's just bad storytelling.
Yeah.
So like I think you've heard this a million times, so I'm sorry, but I think the context is important. I saw this at a similar time to you did, and I liked it a bit more than you did, and I think I was mainly confused by it because I didn't have that understanding of mental health, and I was like, well, I don't know, like the film has had some kind of, I think there were good things about it, and it has had some...
I think stylistically it was good.
Yeah.
Production design was good.
Yeah. I think...
Shot well.
Yeah, I think like... The cinematography I think is really good. I think that's the one nomination that it really does deserve. And I think like you said, production design,
like 70s
certain
New York
little scenes which are I would say. But basically, I watched the film and I was kind of confused by it. But I mainly thought it was very, very cynical. And I agree completely about the thing where it's like everyone in the world is either bad, like thinly sketched out, or irredeemably unpleasant. And therefore I don't actually believe in this world where there's no hope whatsoever. But like I did, I spoke to a friend and had a long debate with him about it, and he was really like, I felt like weirdly, informed by it, and it's changed my perception of people who you might see on the street who's like shouting or drunkenly ranting or on drugs, and it's someone who it's so easy to just like put your head down and ignore them. And I think Joker is a film that actually explores that person in society, and I was like, and he argued it in such like an eloquent way, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit back, go back and watch it and see if I can get that positive aspect out of it, with all the context about Todd Phillips and the woke culture, and it's going to cause mass shootings. That bollocks, I think, bollocks, put it aside, just look at the film. And when I did just look at the film, I thought it was even worse. Like, I think
that's too sporadic, the whole thing about those people that you sort of pass on the street. I think there are scenes where that is
the best scenes in the film are the ones that are like approaching it in that way. Like I think the bit at the beginning, so the train,
or the train,
and he's laughing and pulling faces at the kid, and then he's upset by the mum who tells him to stop, and then he has to hand in the card. Like I think that's a scene again, which is like it's loaded with complexity because you put yourself both in his shoes and the mother's shoes, and you kind of think like I feel about this moment differently depending on who I'm empathizing with. But I think the script is just awful. It's terrible. Like,
we've got to give a special shout out to the ending where he's on the show, which I thought was like a really bad way to finish the film, where he basically, after a film where all of this sort of bad feeling has been brewing throughout the film, and then everyone says that this scene is like one of the best in the film, where he's on the show talking about like what he hates about society, and it feels like I don't want to bring the whole accuracy to the source material thing up too much, because at the end I don't really care, and it's a film where I want to embrace the creativity. But for the Joker is like one of the greatest comic book creations ever. Like, what a contrast to like Batman, who is an image of order and kind of method, sort of like logic and like reasoning things through and kind of step by step sort of analysis,
and like sort of coding,
and like
moral
Joker,
code,
the one thing that he cannot handle is like this embodiment of chaos. And all of the best interpretations of this character have been about like he's kind of unpredictable. You can't nail him down to one ideology because chaos just isn't like that. You like the most frightening people in real life are the people that you will never understand. And then this film, it ends with him like just talking about his ideologies, not even talking, whining about his ideologies on this talk show, and it's the most like pathetic thing to watch.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily think that being that pathetic is a problem as much as you do, possibly.
I think it's one of the things where I'm thinking about it in a broader sense, but even within the format of the film, I think
the only problem with it's a huge problem, but I think the problem with that scene for me is the problem with the dialogue all the way through the film, in that there's no subtext to the dialogue. Characters talk out loud about like everything that they're feeling, and it's just that there's no grey to any of them. And I think he kind of constantly speaks in stock phrases about how miserable the world is and how like miserable his mind is. And again, like, I can't speak to the accuracy of people like going through what he's going through, but the supporting characters, and this is important because these are the whole people who make up the texture of the film, the texture of the world. Everyone he comes into counter with, all of them are appallingly sketched. Like, the characterization is so thin and it's so one note. Like, you look at examples like his friend who gives him the gun, his friend who eventually kills, who gives him the gun at the clown thing. He literally walks in loudly, makes a dwarf joke, and then kind of says, you're my
you're my
number
one guy.
Oh god. And then gives him the gun. And it's just like there's nothing to him other than the fact that he's like stock bully character.
Yeah.
And it's the same with like, I actually think the idea of Thomas Wayne
flipping that on its head is interesting.
Yeah, of him being a dick,
and
him being like this kind of Republican sort of like fuck anyone who doesn't work hard and achieve success. But again, he's just like everyone that the Joker, like that Arthur Fleck goes and sees, the encounter is basically he's like, can I talk to you about like my past or like my mother? And they're literally just like, fuck off, you're mental. And then he laughs through like the painful laughing mechanism, and they all go like, oh, you think it's funny? You think this is funny? And then like something terrible happens, and it's just like, I think in order for the film to be like a nuanced and insightful look at mental health, I think you need to show him interacting with people who would respond to him in a range of ways. Like, and that way you can like, explore the issue properly, rather than just like everyone who he comes across, he treats him like dirt.
But Joe, it's his mental delusion.
Oh, it's so annoying.
The way that he's seeing all these characters.
It's so annoying. But also, when I watched it the second time, I was really like, okay, the film that I wanted it to be, that my friend was talking about, finishes very early on, because that's constricted to a couple of scenes. But I was watching the film in the end, and I was thinking, okay, so like what I was trying to hone in on, like, really, what is this film about? and like, so the Thomas
people
Wayne
are assholes.
There's a lot of things about Thomas Wayne and him being like, you need to like work for a
him
living.
Cleaning up the streets.
Yeah, and
calling, it's like a very literal, like,
calling the kill the rich people scum who don't really deserve the help. They're clowns, and that feels like a dig at the whole kind of right wing Republican philosophy. And yet the kill the rich people, they're so appallingly like horrible in terms of it's like they don't have any real justification for rioting in the way they do. The film doesn't show why that's happening.
It's more just festering anarchism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Particularly, well, they do the things about there's garbage everywhere, but like ultimately there's no philosophy driving those people. So that feels like a dig at people who like sort of victim culture of people who are like, the world owes me something, and there's to an extent a bit of that with Arthur Fleck as well. There's also stuff about him on the talk show of like Robert De Niro and the kind of, I guess, the elite, maybe the liberal elite in Gotham, can laugh at him all he wants, but as soon as he says anything that tries to be funny, they're like, no, you can't say that, which does feel like kind of a look at today's like state on comedy. Yeah. All these things contradict each other. They don't create a coherent point or like a just something insightful to say as a film, and your only justification for it can be that the film doesn't have a political point, and therefore why is it worth anything at all?
Wow.
No,
you're upset. You know I am too. No, it's true.
I really like. It really annoyed me. Yeah. Like I and like, if people have got something good out of it, then I again, like, literally all power to you. I think there are strengths about the film, but I think
even then we're being overly apologetic, because you can say that about any film. There are plenty of these films that we've said are bad, and if someone got something out of Last Christmas besides the fact that Henry Golding is amazing. Funny, then that's great. But like, at the end of the day, our view is this on Joker. We shouldn't need to apologise for it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, the last thing I'm going to say though is also like the Zazie Beetz thing, the woman who lives down the hall to him. That's terribly handled as well, and this is quite funny to say.
Doesn't pay off in any way, does it?
Well, it doesn't really serve it as to just add this other. So basically, I watched the film the first time, and I'm absolutely terrible at guessing twists in films. I think it's one of the reasons I like films so much, is because I never get the twists, and I can always just enjoy it and suspend disbelief. Yeah, I'm always, wow! Other than Last Christmas, I've never ever guessed a twist before it's revealed to me. But basically, the reason that whole thing doesn't work at all is because I was watching it the first time, not thinking that he was making the relationship up, and therefore in my head I was like, this film is terrible because like I don't believe in this relationship whatsoever. Like, he's literally like, the film spends the whole time like just being like, look how fucking strange he is. Like, he doesn't live like, he's skeletal and like weird. And I think it is sort of demonizing of him. And therefore, like, I didn't believe in the relationship at all. So I was like, okay, this is probably the worst, let alone like worst female character, but worst character ever in a film. And then when it is shown, it does that lame kind of Fight Club thing where it shows all the scenarios where she's not. So it's hackily revealed, and then
just shoving it down our throats. By the way, all of this.
So basically, either you don't get the twist and you spend most of the film thinking it's terrible, or you do get the twist and therefore it's not a good twist.
I because I did see the twist. Well, it was more a case of it started happening. I was like, okay, so there's one of two options. Either she's a figment of, or this relationship is a figment of his imagination, in which case I don't really care because it's so like weirdly developed and unsatisfying to watch, and like doesn't portray her in a tremendously positive light. It just
No, it doesn't portray her in any light.
No,
it doesn't.
and,
the film isn't interested in her.
But then if it's not a twist, it's just like a horribly one-note, underdeveloped relationship. So it didn't work in either way.
And again, I think, and I think the whole way that's not resolved, where it's like it goes like you just see him walking out of the flat, and it's unclear as to whether he's killed her or not. I think it's really hacky and lazy. It loses its bottle. Like, I think that would be a moment if he like killed her. But again, the film...
It's ambiguous, Joe.
But what's the value in that?
That's the point.
What's the value in that?
It's artistic. It's artistic expression. It's artistic license.
But I was surprised watching it again, because I think one of the things I did think the first time was that the scenes were actually dramatically... A lot of the scenes were dramatically constructed quite well, even if you remove the awful script. But I think there are a lot of things, particularly that I'm amazed it's nominated for best editing, actually, because there are some there are some appallingly dismissive edits. Like, there's a bit early on where he's washing his mum in the bath, and then he's saying like, "Do you remember I'm gonna do a career in stand-up comedy?" And she goes, "Don't you have to be funny to be in stand-up comedy?" And then it cuts. And what storytelling is all about is like the reaction shot you'd get from him. How does he respond to that, and how does that develop his relationship with his mum? And it just cuts. It's do
you think it would have gotten such a response if it wasn't? You know, there's a whole debate of like, if you took out the names of some of this Batman stuff in there, it would be its own film. Do you reckon if it wasn't based around the Joker, the response would be much different? I reckon it would be a less main... I reckon fewer people would have seen it. It would be a less mainstream film. And I think there would have been maybe even more Academy love for it. You know, it's a... Or maybe not.
There can't be much more Academy love for it.
True, yeah.
I think no, actually. I think one of the reasons it's done so well is because I think the Oscars have come under pressure to award films and to acknowledge films that the public like as well.
Yeah.
And it has made a tremendous amount of money. And I think they looked at it on the most surface level, saw prestige, and were like, it's what we've been looking for. It's a film that's made loads of money and is like high art. Yeah. And I think that high art status, I think, is
other sexes.
And I think it's totally artificial, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think you've summed it up way better than I did, and I was meant to be the one who's more mad about it.
I'm going to practice this in my head. I do have to say the one thing that held up better the second time, though, is the first time I was actually not that keen on Joaquin Phoenix's performance. I don't know how you feel about him, but
I did think he was convincing. I did think it was a good performance, no matter what I thought of the material.
I can't think of a performance that it is so superior to the material that it's in. I think he is really good, actually, and I think at first I thought it was a sort of indulgent performance and a bit of a like, you know, the opposite of Adam Driver in Marriage Story. Madam Story. But I think it's actually it's a more generous performance than I remember. I think he's trying to get something out of the other actors, but the other actors are like, fuck, but I don't even have a character, let's say.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Well, we'll never know behind the scenes,
we must move on, sorry. Jojo Rabbit?
Yeah.
What didn't you like about it?
I just thought the comedy was so it got really repetitive after a while. I didn't think there was anything complicated about it. It was like, it started off saying, it's funny because Nazis, us Nazis, we do this and that, and would we do it because we're Nazis? And it's like, yeah, we've kind of done Nazi humour plenty in the past few decades. But do you remember Fawlty Towers? Don't mention the war.
I haven't seen that.
I that was less focused on the Nazis, but like, it just seemed... I was looking forward to something that would be a bit more complicated in its humour, maybe a bit more like going into the finer details of the Nazi sort of leadership and like how I was expecting...
I think it does do that though, because I think it does look at different parts of like, it breaks down different parts of like the Nazi philosophy, and you watch this character, this young boy who's had it, like this little boy, who has these kind of, he's trying to ingrain all these ideas into his head, and I think they're kind of the film, his interactions with the Jewish girl who's in his house and with Scarlett Johansson, those things are kind of picked apart as they go along. I mean, not in a particularly complex way. I would agree that I'm surprised it's up for Best Picture, because I think I think it's super enjoyable, super funny, and I think when it goes into more serious territory, that stuff lands really well. So I
thought the serious stuff worked. I thought the emotional kind of through line of the film was superior to the comedy. I thought it almost felt like a different film.
But I also think the balance between comedy and tension was done quite well later on as well. Like, I think the bit where Stephen Merchant and the other
he's the best part of the film, I'd say, like comedy wise. I'd say.
But I think that bit is great, and I think there are other bits like it where like comedy is almost in the same breath, the same, you know, seconds of storytelling. There's comedy and impending horror. And I think that's a hard balance to pull off.
It is. I don't know. I was constantly thinking of Terry Gilliam when I was watching this. And I do think, had Terry Gilliam made a film like this and probably, you know, gotten like, I don't know, who was the guy who wrote Brazil? I can't remember. But like, you know, more of a Gilliam-esque take on it, I think would have worked. More of like a twisted look at the sort of the government views and kind of indoctrination. I think it just felt like it was hitting all of the same beats that you would expect from a film that's tearing apart the Nazi ideology. It was all the same. I know there's only so much that you can do, but it was just doing it in the most standard way. The comedy is, I mean.
I think I'd maybe say I think it works for me. It worked brilliantly as a comedy, and I think particularly like there were bits where it really reminded me of Edgar Wright, and it's rare to see comedy films where, you know, they're using sort of the language of cinema to actually create the comedy, like things entering the frame in interesting ways, things leaving the frame in funny ways, just like, you know, framing a gag in the exact way it needs to be framed. So I think it worked on that level. I think I agree that on the level of satire, it isn't doing anything particularly cutting or that relevant, which
but isn't that the point? Yeah, isn't that the point of the film? It's meant to be a satire on Nazi kind of ideology and a kid being lulled into all these views. Like the whole like imaginary Hitler stuff. Some of it was fairly funny. I thought it ended in a really unsatisfactory way. Like he disappeared for like a huge portion of the film, or he would just like appear for one shot where he'd look kind of annoyed.
I don't remember missing him that much. I think he comes like I think they do maintain it enough. I don't think it's a Jamie Bell Rocket Man problem.
I just don't think there's enough conflict there. Like it's an interesting idea to have it look like this kid is like seeing that he's so good at all of these different tasks that Hitler would be like proud of him, and like, you know, there's the whole like sort of hero figure idea there. And then what would he think when I'm starting to sort of go in the other direction? But there's not enough conflict there. Like there's one or two scenes where they start arguing, but there's no drama attached to it. I think by that stage you've become so accustomed to the ridiculous notion of it that it doesn't land with any drama. And then the final scene, he just kind of kicks him in the balls, doesn't he? And it's like, ha ha ha, kicking Hitler in the balls. It just doesn't land as an emotional moment.
I think it does.
But he doesn't he literally say "fuck off, Hitler" and kicks him in the balls?
Yeah, but it's okay. You can have a comedy moment that.
Yeah, it's not satisfying as like an emotional moment.
But I think
that latter half of the film is so rooted in
but like the changes that he goes through emotionally happen in other bits. Like it happens when he.
But that's such a defining thing of his, like, character throughout the film.
No, I think I disagree though that that's badly done, because like I think you have this, you kind of see that. Like this ideology that he has in here, like it's kind of driven into him both by sort of naivety but also fear. And in the Hitler thing, that's the side of him where like more and more as it comes on, it's like he needs to kind of conquer the fear aspect of it, and then like in terms of like learning to kind of just like grow up and understand that this ideology has unbelievable like horrific consequences. I think that comes across more as he like, you know, processes what happens to his mother, and when he like takes the steps to help the Jewish girl at the end. So I don't think everything comes down to that moment where he
I don't think
kicks her in the
everything
balls.
comes down to that, but I think it's an important emotional moment that isn't giving its due. I think there's so much more that you can do with that idea, and they didn't do enough with it because they just thought, it's funny. It's Hitler. Let's kick him in the balls. Fuck you, Hitler. And everyone in the cinema that around me laughed. All the simpletons.
I
sorry.
laughed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a simpleton.
Yeah, exactly. It
I'm
was
not
a crowd
simpleton.
it's written to be like a crowd pleasing moment when it could be something much more satisfying. It goes. That's most of the film. It just goes for like what will be funny in an instantaneous way, rather than something that would be like clever on a deeper level and be equally funny, if not more funny.
I'll give you that. I'll give you the last word on that. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I just can't.
Right.
I can't bring myself to
Next film.
defend it that much. Oh yeah, we've only got 2 left. We'll quickly go. Let's go Once Upon a Time in Hollywood pretty quickly.
It's a while ago now.
I watched it again and like it more the second time, opposite to Joker. I liked it a lot more the second time. I think the first time I was really quite annoyed by it because again I thought way too long. I think maybe I thought it was maybe Quentin Tarantino's most indulgent film. Yeah, I thought there was so much that didn't need to be there, and I thought there was so much about it that was interesting, and particularly that era and the whole sort of the Manson killings, that period of history, both in terms of what it did to like America and what it did to the film industry, like Hollywood. I find such an interesting idea to do a film about that, and I thought so much of it was just indulgent and kind of like Tarantino sort of reminding us of the film.
Yeah, to some extent. I would say there were portions that
I
felt
enjoyed
indulgent,
that
but
bit. I enjoyed that stuff more the second time.
Yeah. I enjoyed the like snapshot sort of quality to it. The idea of like just showing all these different facets of this time in Hollywood through these different characters.
Well, actually, to be honest, that's still probably my least favourite bit. I think I still don't really like the beginning, and I think the weakest part of the film is like, I think the Half and the Bad Guys said this, where they were like, it's almost like Family Guy in the way that it kind of they'll be talking about things and then it will cut to one of Leonardo DiCaprio's films.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the weakest aspect of the film. I could do completely without that. What I did like a lot more is watching the characters literally just like drive around Hollywood.
Yeah. I think that's why Brad Pitt is the most enjoyable presence in the film.
Definitely. I like the Margot Robbie bit as well though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Leonardo DiCaprio's performance is fantastic. Like, I think it's one of my favourites of his.
Neurotic.
He doesn't. What's amazing about his performance, I think, is that he doesn't play it for laughs at all. Yeah. He's completely sincere.
It's almost like self-referential, isn't it? In the years after,
I agree.
The whole Oscar debacle.
I agree. I think it's genius casting, and he's totally consumed with himself in a way that is kind of endearing, but he's just so like believes in what he's doing, and it makes his character like charming and fascinating weirdly.
I do think Brad Pitt gets the best scene in the film on the Manson ranch.
That is
a huge amount of tension, and the set design is gorgeous as well, with like all of these like wrecked classic, going back to cars again, all these like classic American cars laying around like carcasses, and like a ruined old Western set. It's literally like the death of old school Hollywood. There's something so like foreboding.
I do love the stuff about like the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio is acting out a Western like as the actor, and Brad Pitt's kind of doing it for real. As they're going in the same with like the stunt man, and that kind of pays off at the end. And I think the second time, a lot more of what happens earlier on pays off in that final section. Yeah, which I think is really, really. I just a lot of the things like shouldn't work, and I know like that if Quentin Tarantino was like a first time screenwriting and he like submitted that script to like competitions, they'd tell him to get rid of loads of stuff, and be like, Margot Robbie doesn't need to go to the cinema, see her name there, then go to no, like. Not even that. Like, she doesn't need to walk past the cinema, see her name on the cinema, then go to a bookshop, get a book, walk out, have the same moment of seeing her name on the cinema, and then deciding to go up to it. But weirdly, in this film, it feels more organic,
and kind of wandering around.
And I think it's unlike, bad films. I think I said this about Batman in our commentary. It's a film where I believe the characters have lives outside of what we're seeing, and that's what's so important. And I actually think the subversion at the end, the changing history thing of of what happened to the Manson murderers, I think it actually works even better in this than it does in Inglourious Basterds. I think there's more substance to what it's doing in this one.
I think it's thoughtful in this one, but the violence, I think, comes out of no. I think the violence is unsuitable for the rest of the film. It's the one film where I was like, I'm kind of hoping this doesn't end with what has now become a trope, I think, of Tarantino's films. It's like the violent climax. It's almost a shame because he's not a director that you would expect to be predictable. And I was like, I don't want it to end in a violent scene. And it kind of went that way. And I like the ending on like a thematic level, and like you say, in terms of like what it means for like against the Manson family and for Sharon Tate. But I thought the execution was like just crass compared to the rest of the film. It was just like it was like entertaining.
I can't immediately construct a counter argument, but I kind of love it.
Yeah.
But I also think there's something about like there's a kind of meta quality though to it, and that like Quentin Tarantino must be aware now that people know they're watching a Quentin Tarantino film, and it's something that it's like people, including myself, are weirdly willing to indulge in, and I think for some reason that moment works for me. Like I don't feel kind of distracted though, even throughout the violence, from what I think the moment is trying to do thematically. I think I can see totally why you possibly were, but I just love it.
Like I say, it was entertaining. I just don't think it gelled with the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And I get it on a thematic level. But yeah, I liked it. I wouldn't say it's one of his best films, but it's probably one of the stronger ones out of the Best Picture nominations.
I think if I possibly watched it a third time, because I think it seems like it. I think it's going to be one of those films that the more I watch it, the more I like it, and I think I like it the more I think about it.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I really, really love Brad Pitt's performance. Finally, that's Little Women.
We both loved it.
It's the contention for Marriage Story. I don't know which one I like more.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
I think Marriage Story probably. No, I don't get Little Women. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, I it was funny because I came out of it and I was like, my first reaction to it is such a like old white guy thing to say, but it's like, if I had a daughter, I'd want to take them to see this film.
Lame. It's so lame.
Yeah, because it just like it made me recognize, because I'm not really into costume dramas at all. I had no like awareness of Little Women before this film. Like, I knew it existed, but I wasn't familiar with the story of the characters at all. So I kind of went in completely blind. A little bit like, I'm not super into costume dramas. Am I actually going to enjoy this? It's got some actresses I like. Greta Gerwig's great. Let's see what it's like. But it did make me think, okay, there's a definite reason why these characters in this story have continued to resonate over time. It's because they're so vivid. The relationships work so well. It's such an optimistic story in spite of such a like
there's hardship in it, yeah.
Hardship, yeah. Just like a really uplifting film in a different way. It's like emotionally taxing but uplifting by in an eventual way. And considering it's an ensemble cast, I wouldn't say I don't think there's a character I would say is like thinly sketched out at all. There are ones that you maybe relate to less.
I think some performances, I'll get away like my one criticism out of the way. I think Emma Watson, is a weaker actor than some of the other people in the film. I think she still works in the film. I don't think it's a bad performance, but
it fits into that character. I think.
Yeah, I
think
think so.
It's more like, she's almost like she's almost like a caricature of the good. The do-gooder.
Having said that, like, I think like Florence Pugh, who she plays, Amy, I've only read like a tiny bit of the book, but I have some understanding of what happens in the book, and she's a very, very strange character. She's like, the youngest sister, really quite spoiled, really quite kind
bratty,
of proud and obsessed with herself. And she does some things in the book that really don't make that much sense. It's like like Jo goes to a thing with Laurie and she's like, can I come? And Jo's like, no. So she like burns her entire book. And it's like such a monstrously horrible thing to do. And yet Florence Pugh brings that character to life so much. Her performance is amazing. It's just...
Well, that's the other brilliant thing about it, is it does such a great job of balancing the then and the now. Not just visually, like in terms of colour is used really well, but also the characterizations. You can see
you see
a
them
natural
all
evolution
aging,
between the two.
Exactly.
In terms of performance and dialogue.
The adaptation also that Greta Gerwig has done of the books I think it's nothing short of extraordinary. It's like, it's what she's done, because the books, it's 2 books, and everything is entirely chronological in them, and by mixing up the narratives in the way that she has, not only has she like solved a problem of certain like repeated beats, so like for example Beth being ill twice, that happens in the first book and then it happens in the second book, and she finds this brilliant way of putting it together, showing Jo's experience of waking up, finding her okay the first time, and finding her like that she's passed away the second time. And it lands with such tremendous force. It's so impressive that she's gone through this old, like...
It's almost like the authors revisited it and reworked it.
Exactly.
Themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's both a respectful adaptation.
Kind of way,
Greta Gerwig was there in this test screening going, I might have gone...
CGI scene with all the aliens dancing.
I might have gone too far enough. I feel like
I love that quote.
Laurie is one of the funniest characters we've had in the Little Women universe. Real. Not so.
You got like Emma Watson being like, "This is bad. This is awful."
But I had the same experience. I had you can tell it's the same director and writer as Lady Bird, because I think I had the same experience of first of all, I completely just related to Jo and the other characters. I don't even think it's a film for women. I really don't.
No.
I think it's
I only said the thing earlier about...
No, I know what you mean. I think it's there's no reason whatsoever why anyone can't find connection in it with the characters, and even the supporting characters. I think the thing between Beth and Chris Cooper is just beautiful, and it's gorgeous. The scene
really
where she's playing piano, and then it pans out to that wide shot of him just sitting quietly on the stairs. It's gorgeous, and he could be such a character that another filmmaker, Todd Phillips, no, sorry Todd, he's listening, would just be he's functional and he needs someone to play, but Greta Gerwig,
there's a resonating tenderness to it.
She just has this unbelievable affection for all of her characters. They all feel again so rich, so detailed, and I just thought it was beautiful. It was so good. Beautiful. It's beautiful. They're beautiful.
So what should we say? What our pick for Best Picture is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to do go through a few of the other categories very, very quickly. If you're bored.
I think we
should we just go for Best Picture?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first, should we just say for Best Picture, will win and should win?
Yes.
I think 1917 will win.
Can I see the nominations again?
You can.
I think on a technical level, 1917 will probably get it. I think, for me, it's a coin toss between... let's say between Irishman, Joker, and Parasite.
Really?
I think each of them kind of has a case. Yeah.
You don't think 1917 will?
I think it has a case, but it's not as strong as those three.
I disagree.
Having not seen Parasite.
I think it will be 1917. I think it could be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think the only one that would definitely not get it is Ford v Ferrari. No, and Jojo Rabbit. Sorry, yeah.
I also think, unfortunately, Little Women and Marriage Story have no chance either. I think if they're not in Best Director and not in Best Editing, I think they have no chance.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, 1917 is not in Best Film Editing, but I think they're. Okay, what do you think should win?
I think.
From what's there?
Can you go back? Sorry, we were looking at this on Joe's laptop. Bearing in mind I haven't seen Marriage Story or Parasite, at the moment I would say Little Women.
I think, even though I slightly prefer Marriage Story, I would also say Little Women. I think it's the best achievement, and I think it's the film that people will look back on this year and be like, that was really one of the great surprise hits. Having said that, Parasite sounds like it's great.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. Sorry, you're tired, aren't you? Sleepy boy. Sleepy boy.
Well, wait, no, there's a third one, wasn't there? Have we done it? Sorry,
I was going to say biggest snubs, which we've kind of said.
Yeah, Lighthouse, Us, Booksmart.
Lighthouse, Us, Booksmart.
I will say one snub that I forgot to bring up. Frozen 2 didn't get nominated for animated picture, but Toy Story 4 did, which I think is the wrong way around. Because at least Frozen 2 looked amazing.
Yeah.
Toy Story 4 wasn't particularly good on a story or a visual level. There's some visuals I kind of like.
I need to watch the Toy Story films again. As far as I'm concerned, the first one is still the one I enjoyed the most, and then all of them have kind of done the same beat.
Yeah, I mean,
again, Woody is the same in all four films. I feel.
I would say they do things with Woody. He's more or less the same. I think the biggest travesty is Buzz Lightyear because he's such an interesting character in the first film, and then each one, they do a little bit more of him in the fourth one, but he always feels like a second wheel. When in the first one, what was so great about it was that they were both kind of in it together, and like that was the whole like thing of the film was these two characters bouncing off each other, and you don't really see that again in any of the sequels. I'm sorry, I'm getting into my Toy Story commentary.
No. But this is a different...
Especially if you compare Toy Story 4 to the original, I think there's a vast difference in quality. I think the first one is like genuinely a masterpiece. I think this...
It's like one of your favourite films, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll watch it soon, I promise. Can I make one last thing about the Oscars? I think the Best Director list is a hot mess, personally. It's Scorsese for The Irishman, Todd Phillips for Joker, Sam Mendes for 1917, Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. Again, can't speak for Bong Joon-ho, but I think it's good that he's there. He's kind of the only one that doesn't feel totally predictable, and it sounds amazing. Greta Gerwig should 1,000,000% be there. For the same reasons I said Noah Baumbach should be there.
Yeah.
I would also put Jordan Peele for Us before any of them.
And I would probably say I would put James Mangold in Best Director and not have Ford v Ferrari in Best Picture, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I think his direction was more noticeable to me than the quality of the entire picture, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, interesting. But yeah, I think basically the final rant is like, so Todd Phillips or Joker, I think we've spoken about Joker. Shouldn't be there. But with like Scorsese, Mendes and Tarantino, I think they are well-directed films, but if you think about like the Oscars, awards ceremonies, like it's really stupid to kind of quantify these things anyway. Even though we've done an entire commentary on it, it's so hard to quantify the best directed film of the year. So surely you've got to do things that will like help progress the industry and help expose audiences to films that they wouldn't usually see, and to hire three men who are already so secure in the film industry. They just don't need it. They don't need it, and they're not the 5 best films of the year. And it pisses me off.
It's almost like the Academy Awards aren't indicative of actual film quality. Why are we doing this podcast?
Because I'm obsessed.
No.
It's not as bad as last year.
It deserves discussion.
It's not as bad as last year.
Is it not?
The two biggest winners last year were Green Book and Bohemian Rhapsody.
But was the rest
There was
diluted quality as this year?
No, I don't. I think the films this year are better than last year.
Okay.
Go back and listen to our commentary last year.
Yeah, maybe I need to.
Most of the films you hated.
Probably.
Anyway, we gotta go to bed, guys.
More not gets angry about this year's Oscars compared to last year's.
Good night. Thank you for listening.
Good night,
Mum.
Joe.
And Dad.
No.
Just end the podcast.
It's such a shame that Us hasn't been nominated for anything, or The Lighthouse.
We've said that. Bye.
Emergency ending. Thank you for listening.
Love you.
And good night.
I love you.
And all the best for the Oscars night.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.